What up, though? This is Knockouts in 3 Counts. But before we bring you another episode of Podcast Gold, let me tell you about the homies over at Michigan's Finest. Do you ever find yourself trying to get yourself together and thinking, man, this is going to be a great night, but I'm looking for that little extra something? Well, check out our friends at Michigan Finest. If you are into medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, concentrates, vapes, anything of that sort, Michigan's Finest has got you covered. And as you can see here, it's all easily done by their website. It's all curbside, and you'll be in and out in 2 minutes. And they're family owned and operated, so customer service is their number one goal. And now, since they are rocking with Knockouts in 3 Counts, use the code KO3MF. Yes, that's KO3MF. You get 10% off your entire order, but that does exclude featured items and items that are already on sale. But if you use that code, you're getting 10% off your items, and I promise you, either if you're looking for that big knockout or you're ready to hit the sheets for that 3 count, Michigan's Finest will get you together. Tell them Knockouts in 3 Counts sent you, and I promise you, you're going to be having a great night. Peace.
This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts in 3 Counts.
Cover! We got a Cover World Champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts in 3 Counts is the podcast, baby! It's a real deal, baby!
Knockouts in 3 Counts starts now.
Ooh, what up, though? This is Knockouts in 3 Counts, and my car is smashed up like the cars from Over the Edge 98, but I'm still here in this bitch. Hit subscribe, and it is last call, but apparently not for all of us. But with that being said, this is another episode of Knockouts in 3 Counts, and I figured since there was so much shit to go over this last weekend, I mean, when you think about it, you had Bellator 289, you had BKFC, you had Toefimo Lopez, you had UFC 282, you had NXT Deadline, you had Ring of Honor Final Battle, which if you're new here, make sure you go and check out that episode with the baddest you've ever seen, boy. Shane Taylor came through to come talk about all of that good stuff with Face and Swerve in Our Glory at ROH Final Battle. We'll have plenty to say about that. And, have to talk about if this Paddy Pimblett fight might have been the biggest robbery in UFC history, but we'll have to talk about that. Chris, how the fuck you doing, and what's new on the last call?
Well, we just got done talking boxing. If you heard it in MMA, we want to thank Marcel Dorff of MMA Odds Breaker. And, of course, we definitely talked about the Douglas Crosby strikes again in 2 days, 2 different fight cards. We also recap Paddy Pimblett, the emergence of probably UFC's new big breakout star Ilya Topuria destroying Bryce Mitchell. We even broke down Bellator getting what they want in Apache Mix versus Rafian Stotts for the Bellator Grand Prix finale. And also got to talk, we got to mention Liz Carmouche, who also, she is basically a story, I'd say, of the last 2 years in terms of women's MMA. Literally becoming a dominant champion, becoming almost now the face of Bellator's flyweight division.
Can't argue that, man. Liz Carmouche definitely an OG when it comes to MMA. When you go back and look at the fact that she had her run in the UFC and everywhere else, and to now have like a second wind of her career with Bellator, there's definitely a lot to talk about there. But before we get to the MMA side of things and the combat sports side of things, because there was much more of that side of things, let's talk a little bit of wrestling before we get there. And we had some shit to talk about on that end, because on Saturday, we had some good old-fashioned competition. Maybe it might not have been head-to-head, but you had NXT Deadline and the night portion. And then at 4 o'clock, you had, like I said at the beginning of the show, you had Ring of Honor Final Battle, which in my opinion was one hell of a show. Shout out to last week's guest, Shane Taylor and JD Griffey, who went head to head with Swerve in Our Glory. all in all, man, it was a lot of great wrestling action. And then, like I said, at NXT Deadline, you know, you had the debut of the Iron Survivor Challenge, and we'll get into our thoughts with that. Well, Chris, since you are the guest here today, my man, which side of the wrestling end do you want to talk about first, and what were your thoughts on it?
Well, let's talk about Ring of Honor, just the entire, I guess, whole thing of it. I just don't get it. And look, I'm trying to be, impartial, trying to be fair. And this isn't on the wrestlers because kudos to everybody involved. Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Jericho put on a fantastic match. You had once again FTR, Briscoe stealing the show. I'm glad to see Shane Taylor and Keith Lee involved. There's a lot of good things, but all the card just kill Ring of Honor. Just let it die. Especially when when you are AEW, say, oh, we are the wrestling organization. So now you have Ring of Honor. You're trying to sell it, and it's just, I just feel like, and we're gonna get to this later on, the whole, Honor Club and everything. Just kill it. Just be done with it. Just put a bullet into it. It's like Old Yeller. It's time for Old Yeller to die.
Damn.
Take it out back. Put it down and bring everybody over to AEW if you want, or just I'd even just start cutting some people. You have too many people in this damn roster now, including the AEW people and the AEW Ring of Honor. It's like, what, we're gonna hire everybody who's a free agent? Hey, have you guys been hired? They should sign you guys here. Hey, Kyle Collison can compete in the Mid-Atlantic division.
Fuck yeah,
Sign
I can.
him, Tony Khan. Sign him to a
Sign me up, coach.
$100,000 per year contract. Sign him.
Hey, don't give them any ideas.
Fuck yeah, I will tell the post office I quit tomorrow.
Where's the potential?
Where's the potential? Sign me the fuck up. I will be there tomorrow. The post office can go to hell. I'm good.
Any ideas, man?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Ring of Honor, hey, sign your boy. I'm just being serious. Sign your boy.
Unless they want to give us a shot at the trios titles, and I'm in.
Fuck yeah. Knockouts and 3 counts wins the trios championships. But speaking of the trios championships, shout out to past guest of the show, Khan. Got his second reign of the trios championships, this time with another fellow past guest of the show, the motherfucking Machine, Brian Cage, and Toa as well, the Gates of Agony. Prince Nana got him one. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I gotta chime in on what you said as far as Ring of Honor. And for all of you guys who are watching, what did you guys think of Ring of Honor Final Battle? Corey will no show. What do you mean?
Huh?
He said Corey will no show. Oh no! Donald's throwing shots.
No.
What? I'll no show what?
I don't know. I'm lost,
match, bro.
Donald, please expand. I don't know what happened, but I need to know what's going on. But as far as Ring of Honor goes, I personally don't mind that they have this coming back like this. I think it's a good thing because, in the same way WWE has Raw and SmackDown and NXT and all that, I like that with Ring of Honor, being a completely different, company and brand, even though we all know that AEW owns it. I like that it keeps it so it's 2 different brands. And if you're gonna make it to where you have a lot of that original talent over there, or keep the integration of them, I'm not mad at it. J-Bone, what do you think? What are your thoughts on Ring of Honor coming back?
I mean, I agree on both sides, man. I mean, I love to see it just because I'm a wrestling fan like that. I mean, the more wrestling, the better for me. But Chris is right. I mean, let's be honest, dude. You have so much talent. You can't sign them all. And at this point, it goes back to that. Like, we have an overhaul on the roster. We got to find new places for them, which is why you see this Ring of Honor. I mean, granted, you got great wrestling there. You got guys that deserve spots on big shows. But in all actuality, you can't gather everybody in one basket under one umbrella. Eventually, it's going to kind of branch off. And I think, it's going to get there, man. It's sad to say, but I don't think Ring of Honor is going to stay around that long.
But, I mean, it can't all be AEW because, I mean, Rampage is only an hour-long show. So, I mean, again, that's why this is why, you know, something Chris brought up off the rip, you know, it was surprising to me that they announced that they're going to do the Honor Club model where they're going to do, you know, if you're subscribed to Honor Club, you know, you'll be able to see Ring of Honor like that and all that kind of stuff. But my whole thing is like, I feel like Ring of Honor would be the show that you would want on another, you know, on another channel, whether it's TNT, TBS, whatever it is, you know, have its own, you know, 2-hour slot like Dynamite's got, and then you can make it another brand. Because I mean, let's face it, for a long time, you know, whether it's Samoa Joe with the television title or, you know, like we mentioned, you know, Khan and them now have the 6-man titles, and then you've got, you know, the Ring of Honor Championship, which was defended on this show between Claudio and Chris Jericho, and Chris Jericho's brought Ring of Honor a lot of recognition within the time he's had the championship. But I mean, again, without them having TV, it's, you know, I feel like it's going to be tough for them to build that brand. One, like I said, I guess I'm in the minority on this one because I'm not mad that Ring of Honor is back as a second brand for them. Like, personally, I really think that's
I don't mind it either, but I do think it takes away a little bit of what Ring of Honor was, because Ring of Honor was the top indie promotion, right? Like, that was great to watch.
Donald says he thinks GCW surpassed him. You know, I mean, in popularity,
it's hard to argue that.
In popularity right now, it's hard to argue it. I mean, right now, I mean, Ring of Honor, the only thing Ring of Honor has going for it right now is it's just got more money and more backing. But again, that's why we got to see what happens when they get back to their,
you know, it's not the same taste as Ring of Honor was. Great wrestling, great stuff, but it's not the Ring of Honor that we know. It's the commercialized version of Ring of Honor.
From the outsider's perspective, though, it seems like the big difference between the current, at least how you guys are saying GCW is now surpassed or whatever the case be, it seems like GCW doesn't have as much of a turnaround with a lot of their roster, or they'll bring in like high caliber guys that are already in the AEW or have made their name in other places and stuff like that. And it's less, they have their roster that they've really built up and do a great job on almost every one of their shows and stuff like that. And then, like I say, they pluck talent from different cities and stuff that they think they can do interesting matches and stuff with that. Like, but it's not when I think of indie, I think of AAA baseball or something, right? You want that to be a stepping stone where somebody is immediately like they showcase their talent and then move on to the next thing, right? And I feel like that's not what we're seeing with the GCW and stuff like that, where at least with the old model of Ring of Honor, I feel like it was more of that because the roster was more inflated. So they were able to kind of, the moves weren't as noticeable. I don't want to say not as noticeable, but they weren't as noticeable as in they didn't affect Ring of Honor as much, where I feel like if Effie or something left GCW, that'd be a big impact both in his singles and in his tag matches. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I feel like their core group is a lot tighter at a GCW than it was maybe at a Ring of Honor.
Well, I mean, GCW is really grown into that indie where, you know, GCW.
I feel like they're more of like an indie darling than like an indie pusher.
Well, sure, but that's what I'm saying. What you described with, you know, what you described with that, like about being like a platform where you can be seen. Here's the difference between a GCW and a Ring of Honor is that, popularity wise, right now, GCW definitely might have the bigger of the names as far as popularity goes. Mm-hmm. But as far as like financially though, like there were people like our guy Shane Taylor that we just talked about who they're making a living off of wrestling for Ring of Honor. Now, granted, is he still wrestling out on the indies and stuff like that too? Sure. But you know what I'm saying? Like, even before Ring of Honor closed, and here's another fact, Ring of Honor was the only company that paid their talent all throughout the pandemic as well. So, I mean, I would say, if anything, GCW definitely may have surpassed as far as popularity. But when you talk about, like what you said, Corey, in the, you know, in the scope of being the one that gets you seen to go to the bigger ones, I would say that's more where we're at with GCW. But here's a comparison, Chris, of that I'll start with you. You know, I've heard a lot of people say that they are comparing GCW to ECW. You know, that they're real close to where ECW was at one point. Obviously not on ran during Donald talking in the comments, you know, GCW ran during COVID. But yeah, man, like what are your thoughts as far as the comparisons with GCW to something like an ECW?
I mean, I don't know who was jumping in on that, but
I thought Chris was jumping in, but I don't know who was doing what. Go ahead, Corey.
But for my take on that one, like I said earlier, I think it's more of the indie darling thing, and we'll see later where this current roster of talent that GCW has been able to kind of put out into the forefront, where they end up building themselves to in their wrestling career, right? That's what I feel like was the difference back with the old like ECW days and stuff like that, is a lot of those guys ended up being wrestling Hall of Famers and stuff like that, you know, and I don't know if the current iteration of indie wrestlers are, you know, of that ilk. I guess we'll see once their career trajectory kind of plays out, but that's still up in the air, if you get what I'm saying.
But it's still, I think the bigger point here is GCW is, all right, we are hardcore, we are, you know, death matches, we're this, at least like, okay, we have this niche. My problem with Ring of Honor is Ring of Honor is basically AEW. They're the same thing in terms of they're both more pure wrestling. They don't, you know, both of them say, hey, we're not doing storylines. We're not doing huge, you know, like promos if we have to. You know, it's mostly, I mean, they always said we are the alternative to WWE and Impact. Well, now you have that was Ring of Honor for a long time. Now you have AEW. You have the same thing. It's almost like you look and go, okay, yeah, you bought Ring of Honor. So it's basically like having two quarterbacks who are the same in terms of they both are drop back passers. They throw 15-yard outs. They, you know, can read the field. That's what Ring of Honor is, and that's what AEW is. And as I said, when you talk about, oh, why don't I have on TV network? Who would want them when it's like, okay, so I'm getting AEW's leftovers. I'm getting, you know, guys who weren't able to go with WWE or were too old. We're getting them. No, thank you. And especially when, look, Raw's ratings are not doing that great still. And granted, it's going against football. You know, AEW still isn't getting over 1 million viewers. You know, SmackDown is not a great ratings grabber compared to other shows on Fox. And so, why pay for wrestling? You know, for a wrestling show when you know, okay, it's limited. We aren't going to get a lot of traditional advertisers, and it's not a real growth network. You know, pro wrestling does not seem to be growing in terms of their numbers, you know, on TV networks.
I feel like SmackDown has done okay. I mean, like, I get what you're saying from a rating standpoint. I mean, like I said, I guess I'm on a different tip than you are on this one because, like I said, I personally like, at least if you're going to have like the two brand thing like we have on with Raw and SmackDown, I like that Ring of Honor, you know, for Ring of Honor to be, you know, their second brand. And if they're going to keep like the pure title and the things like that to kind of make Ring of Honor different. And I mean, as we saw with a lot of the championships, like putting the title back on Claudio, who's a Ring of Honor original, and then for them to have the tag titles go back to the Briscoes, which was one of the most insane matches I've seen in quite a long time, and a match that a lot of people are saying they think is the match of the year. I mean, J-Bone, I know you got to see what happened with Final Battle. What do you think about how all that played out? Because, I mean, I still enjoyed the shit out of the show. So,
oh, I loved it, dude. No, it was a great show. I mean, it just I try not to dive into the whole behind the scenes and the ratings and all that stuff. I really try to keep it on the surface for wrestling for me. Like I said, wrestling as a whole, what I see on the surface was great. That double dog collar match, potentially the match of the year, definitely.
That was insane.
Two of the best tag teams in the world right there doing their thing, man. But it all goes back to the underneath for me. Like, where are we going with Ring of Honor? It isn't over.
I agree. I would have much more liked to seen them come out with a TV Like,
Right.
if they'd have come out and
like,
said,
here's a
okay,
good
we're going to
point.
give them
Here's a good
whatever
point,
the
and here's a
slot
good
on
question.
whatever the network.
And you guys would probably know more than me. What happens to Claudio now? You're the Ring of Honor champion. Are you still on AEW pay-per-views? Are you still on AEW TV? Are you still on TBS TNT? Because if you're kind of stashed away to Honor Club, I can't see how that's lucrative for you, to be honest. Same thing with the tag team titles, the Briscoes.
Here's this new shiny belt. Now all of a sudden you're going to get less eyeballs.
Yeah, can we only see you on an app? Or are we still seeing you on weekly TV?
I mean, that's going to be something we got to wait and see. But I'd like to hope that it's going to be like Jericho, where the belt he was on AEW and Ring of Honor, because I mean that's what we've seen thus far.
To the other side of that question, what does that do for Ring of Honor? Because now you're AEW Ring of Honor, right?
Yeah, but
It
feels what. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I want to jump in here for J-Bone to help him out. This feels like just Tony Khan buying a shiny toy and just going, okay, I got a shiny toy. And then all of a sudden he doesn't think, well, how do I put it together? How do I set this up? Why is it not ready here? Why can't it just, I wind it up and let it go? And that's what it feels like with Ring of Honor. It's like, oh, well, I'm just going to get a TV deal. And it's like, no, these TV deals are valuable. Networks value content and they value the time spots. And you're not going to just go to a TBS, TNT, even like NBC Sports. Go, oh yeah, we want a TV deal. It's like no, we have a budget. We're not going to pay for pro wrestling organization where if you go someplace else, we might not have your talent. And AEW is facing the role of, hey, we might lose our TV deal in 2 years because we have no idea what's going on with Discovery. I mean, they might just go screw wrestling. It's not worth it. We can get something cheaper. They're trying to reinvest in DC, movies and everything. So that's the problem here with Ring of Honor. It's like, okay, there doesn't feel like there's a plan behind it. It doesn't feel like, there's a future. It's like, okay, I bought it. Yippee, I saved it. And I have no idea. But hey, yippee, I saved it.
Yeah. Exactly
that shiny project car that looks so beautiful but doesn't quite run the way he wanted it to.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, so far, I mean, I feel like it's all going to have to be what we see coming out of this. Because, I mean, obviously they announced the thing with Honor Club and all that. I mean, like you said, though, J-Bone, that's like the flip side of it, though. Like, as far as the product we got, I enjoyed the shit out of that show. I feel like it really had, like, the fact that we still had Ian and Caprice, and it had, the old rules and a lot of the old, Ring of Honor flair to it. I still enjoyed the hell out of it. I think from top to bottom, I mean, you had one hell of a show. I thought Joe and Juice Robinson killed it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, Shane Taylor and JD Griffey and Swerve in Our Glory. I mean, what we're going to see next with Keith Lee and all them. I mean, hell, maybe we see Shane Taylor Promotions 2.0. But I don't know, man. It's the show itself was great, but I feel like until we get TV, I agree with what you guys were saying. But now that we've talked about that, I mean, let's talk about the two biggest things coming off of that. Number one, J-Bone, what are your thoughts after what we saw with Shane and the boys on Saturday at Final Battle, bro? Because I feel like there's some shit brewing.
I think we're going somewhere else with that. I didn't think it was I thought Shane was gonna pick up the victory, to be honest. I was hoping so. I didn't expect it to play out that way, but seeds are planted. There's something's going down. We got to stay tuned to find out. But hey, all in all, it's good to see those guys on TV, man. And JD Griffey, dude, I was not aware of how he worked. Good shit, man. Enjoyed that.
JD Griffey's definitely somebody I think we're going to have to see on Knockouts and 3 Counts episode one of these times. But I enjoyed the shit. I definitely am looking forward to seeing what we got going. Clearly, that's the end of Swerve in Our Glory. I feel like Swerve's going to be having to look out to see what happens with old Keith Lee coming behind his back. But we'll have to see how that plays out. And, I mean, the other thing that we got to talk about, holy shit, that dog collar match. The Briscoes are your Ring of Honor tag team champions again. Ring of Honor or FTR lost in this one, but holy shit. What a fight, dude.
Dude, yeah.
Chris,
I'm seeing people calling for match of the year on that.
I mean, I've been seeing it everywhere. Chris, what did you think of the dog collar match, bro?
It was tough. I like the match. You sit there and you go, why is FTR not on AEW? I mean, and I tried to put it out of mind, but the more I watched the match, the more I got pissed because it's almost like they can't do that on TNT. Briscoes aren't allowed. They're just not allowed right now on on either TNT or TBS because of certain executives not liking their gay statements of it. They're unfortunately just blackballed from being on that. So they're stuck on on Ring of Honor. And FTR, you wonder, you hate to read the gossip columns and all that. You hate to think there is truth behind the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and that whole clique sort of becoming like mini Triple H's. But you sit there and watch it, it's just like, this is great, but why the hell can't we get this on AEW? Why all of a sudden are the Young Bucks back, and you have Bowens and all that group, they're feuding with Swerve and Glory, and FTR is like basically just away somewhere. And even they're now sort of like getting to the point where you can tell FTR is looking, going, okay, this isn't what we expected here. We thought it was going to be better, but there's some shenanigans going on. We can't tell what the shenanigans are to you people, but there's some shenanigans going on here in the back.
J-Bone, what'd you think of that one, dude? What'd you think of the dog collar match? What do you think the Briscoes winning the Ring of Honor titles is going to mean going forward? Because that was one hell of a match. But, I mean, again, he brings up a good point when it comes to the Briscoes. But I was glad to see him back there.
Yeah, no, I love seeing him there. You pay homage to the history of Ring of Honor, and that's what are they, 13-time champs or something like that, right?
Something like that,
now?
yeah.
That's math, dude. Yeah, I mean, that's great, but like you said, I mean, what do we do with FTR, man? They're arguably the best tag team, one of the best tag teams in the world. I mean, look at their track list, but they deserve to be on a bigger scale, if you ask me. Unless they called for that match in a sense.
I think they did after the last one that was on there. I mean, look at their trunks. The back of their trunks had the dates of the matches on it. Like, I think FTR. Well, think about it. And if you're FTR, to Chris's point, I mean, shit. Why wouldn't you want to go have a match with the Briscoes? The last one you guys had was a classic, and they're not really doing a whole lot with them on on TV so much. I mean, Dax had a hell of a year with the matches he was having as a single, but I mean, they're not. Like we just said, they just lost the Acclaim.
Yeah.
That's
what brings the question back around. Like, why? Why not? Because if FTR is in my company, they're potentially my top tag team. You know what I mean? Wrestling wise, like, they arguably are the best tag team in the world. Why aren't they up there? There's something behind that. There's got to be. I mean, what would be the reason, right?
I don't know. Maybe it's because there's a lot of people on the roster. Maybe, I mean, there's a million different reasons there could be. I mean, but you're not wrong. I mean, FTR is one of the best tag teams in the world. I mean, they still have two of the other four, major, titles with the IWGP and the AAA tag team titles. But, dude, all I know is those two teams beat the living dog shit out of each other. Like, good God almighty.
Very bloody. Very bloody.
That was a lot of blood, dude.
Entertaining. Definitely entertaining, man.
Hell yeah, it was. Hell yeah, it was. That was, dude, like, I mean, I don't know how you can be a wrestling fan and not just enjoy the shit out of that. Like, I really don't. Because that was a war. And I love the callbacks to the other matches with the way they had that on their trunks and all that stuff. Definitely my match of the night. It's, our buddy Dave LaGreca, who also happens to be a past guest of this show. So if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But, Dave said he thinks that it's match of the year so far. I think, was it Brock? Who said it? Brock? It might have been Brock. Somebody said he thought, yep. Match of the night. That's what he said. Match of the night. FTR and the Briscoes. I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, there's no way to really argue that, dude. That was insane. I mean, like we've talked about the whole day, the whole time so far. I mean, Ring of Honor was the Ring of Honor Final Battle was a badass show from top to bottom. I just really hope that we can see a solid home for them so that Ring of Honor can have some footing and put some backing behind the great talent there, because I mean it's clear that they've got the roster. I mean, the show was badass. We saw a lot of title changes. We also saw Cesaro take the belt. Wow, God damn, I just called him Cesaro. Claudio Castagnoli, good God almighty. Some habits die hard. But Claudio Castagnoli getting the belt off of Chris Jericho. And I'm not going to lie, I'm shocked this is the first time we've ever seen somebody pull that off with the giant swing. Swinging somebody around so many times until he taps out. Not going to lie, definitely like that. Chris, what did you think of Claudio getting the Ring of Honor belt back?
I mean, it's good. I'm glad he got it. It fits him better. And look, as much as I like Jericho, it's getting to the point now with Jericho, you're looking going, okay, you don't need the belt anymore. It's they've got to do something in wrestling here, because I'm looking around. It's like, okay, you brought a lot of these bigger names. You're trying to elevate your own talent. It's gotten lost in the shuffle. It's like now's the time when you can use Jericho to like elevate people. He's at that level. He can lose, still like 10, 15 matches in a row, and nobody cares because he's still Chris Jericho. This is when you need to like start. You want to push Claudio Castagnoli. Good. You want to get one of these kids, whether it's Daniel Garcia or Wheeler Utah. You want to get to the next level, have him feud with Jericho, have him put them over. I mean, this is I'm glad it happened. Now it's time to start. Okay, next step. We build our younger stars, we develop them, and this means that Jericho has to start putting people over.
I mean, well, I would argue after the way things went on Saturday, man. I mean, I think what Jericho did in the time he was champion for Ring of Honor definitely brought some new eyes to Ring of Honor. He had beaten a lot of big names too. So I mean, I think in the short time he was champion, I think he did good for the championship. But I agree with you. I definitely think Claudio is the better way for the Ring of Honor champion. What do you think, J-Bone? What do you think? Do you think what do you think of Jericho's reign? Do you think he did good for the Ring of Honor belt?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, who better to put the title on than one of the best ever, man? You know what I mean? It's a good look. It definitely brought new eyes, and I don't know as far as what's going to happen with Jericho now, because I feel like he's been doing that with like the whole JAS thing. He's really been bringing new talent up as far as keeping guys on his hip. You know what I mean, with that whole crew. But Chris is right. He don't need a belt. He's that guy now where he can go out there and all he's got to do is put on good matches with up and coming performers, man. And that's going to take those guys a long way. But I think the right guy won Saturday. Curious to see what happens going forward with that, though, because Claudio's not a guy that I want to stash away on Honor Club, dude. That's another guy who deserves to be on network TV, if you ask me. But hey, I'm not Tony Khan, so
I mean, you're not wrong.
But like you guys were saying, there's only so many slots, right? And if you want to build up this new thing as its own new thing, it has to have some type of footing, whether that be sacrificing a couple of guys you feel as though are worthy of being on network TV. Maybe that'll generate the eyes to come watch ROH, so it makes it worth running its own show, I guess. You know what I mean?
I hear you. I mean, I agree. They definitely got to get some more eyes on it, but I think Jericho brings more eyes to it, but again, I feel like that's the underlying theme with everything we're saying is it all kind of depends on what we see after it. I mean, overall as a product, I think we can all agree that shit was badass from start to finish. But again, it's all going to kind of matter on where they end up,
I guess let me ask you guys this. So if I were to come to you and say, hey, look, we want your company to succeed.
Says it should have been Bryan Danielson.
That's where I was going. We want your company to succeed, but here's who we want you to showcase as your champion going forward. let's start this new thing. Here's your champ. Is it Claudio? Do you pick Claudio or do you pick guys like Danielson, Samoa Joe, a new guy, Yuta? I mean,
You'd have won back the pure belt. I mean, it was a good
what do
night for
you
the
do there?
BCC.
Because everybody knows your champion is what matters most, especially when you're going forward. You want new eyes. You're starting this new thing with Honor Club. Is Claudio the guy?
I mean, the whole proven commodity thing, right, with the Jericho thing, at least to like get it started, is definitely maybe a good idea. But I feel like you got to get like a fan favorite, like I always do. I'm gonna spin it in my MMA fashion. You got to get somebody like a Sugar Sean or somebody where the young fans are really excited about this guy, and then make them the champion. Maybe a little early in their development or something like that, but somebody the fans are already truly like insanely behind.
Well, to play devil's advocate to what Donald said, Corey, what if, we just saw what happened with Regal? It's pretty much been confirmed that Regal's on his way back to WWE at this point. I mean, we just saw MJF knock out William Regal, and then William Regal letting us all know that was his final lesson for the BCC. Well, now the BCC's got all the belts. Well, who's the one guy we haven't seen since Regal got knocked out? Danielson was with him at the hospital and all that stuff. What if Danielson comes back and says, our leader gets taken out and you guys are just celebrating and, kumbaya? And what about Regal? And then Danielson comes back as, a heel to come fight Claudio and them. And then Donald and everybody might get their wish with Bryan Danielson getting the belt. So, I mean, definitely a lot of different ways that we can go off of Ring of Honor Final Battle. I think as far as the show as a whole, I thought it was good from top to bottom. I liked it. Some of the newer guys got championships too, but again, I think it's all going to come down to where we go as far as TV and that kind of stuff to keep that going. But speaking of new things and all those kind of things, man, we also had NXT Deadline on Saturday night. And we had the debut of the Iron Survivor Challenge, which consisted of 5 men, 5 women. Every 5 minutes, you get another competitor. The competitor that has the most pinfalls or submissions or falls, wins at the end of the 25 minutes. But that being said, if you get pinned, you have to have the minute and the 90 seconds in the penalty box. So, and that also had Braun Breaker and Apollo Crews and a whole litany of other stuff, but mainly surrounding the Iron Survivor Challenge. For those of you guys who were watching, if you guys watched, what do you guys think about it? Chris, what do you think of the concept of this Iron Survivor Challenge, and what do you think of the winners that we saw come from it?
I like the women's just because it was, you were always going, okay, who's going to win it? What's going to happen? It was like, okay, well, it could be Roxanne Perez or Roxy. It could be Cora Jade. Indy Hartwell. You have Zoe Stark. I mean, there were so many. And the way they played it, I liked better. The men was tough just because you knew as soon as Waller got the pin, he was going to do the Miz type gimmick, and maybe it's because it's with Waller. I'm trying to. I don't mean to bag on the kid because I feel bad, but he just comes across like, oh great, it's a third-rate Miz and MJF. Wonderful. It's just like what we need here. So I don't know. It's. Like War Games, they need to make some tweaks. They need to make it so it's not like just, well, this is what's going to happen here. One guy gets a bunch of, gets the pin, and now everybody has to chase him, and he'll just run around here. Because then it's like, okay, yeah, like MMA, sometimes it can get boring. So hopefully they fix it. But overall, I'd say it was a decent little card. There were some things I liked about the card, some things that I hated, and we'll see. It's basically hopefully we'll see like, when are some of these younger stars who under the age of 30 going to be brought up to the main roster?
Well, I think they've already got a few that we're going to see real soon, whether that's WrestleMania or after WrestleMania. J-Bone, what did you think of NXT Deadline and the Iron Survivor Challenge?
I thought the show was good, man. I did like the women's match better than I liked the men. I'm with Chris on that. I was not a fan of the way the men's match ended. But okay, so what do we get out of that though? What's the reward for winning the Iron
Number
Survivor
one
Challenge?
contender.
Is that a number one contender? Okay. It's a good concept, dude. It's just a little much for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old and it's hard to grasp all that anymore. But like you guys were saying earlier, it's a lot of the King of the Mountain style type match. You know what I mean? But it's good to bring
I personally
new
like this
things
better.
like that. I think I'm glad we put it there instead of like Raw or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're gonna
Well, I
try
mean, and now that
something new,
Triple
yeah.
H is in there, who knows? Maybe we could see these kind of matches, all over the place. I think that that's something that'll stick more to NXT, more personally myself. But I mean, I like that they try to do something different. And I mean, like you said, the first thing I thought when I heard the penalty box thing was King of the Mountain. But at the same time, with this one, there's no ladder or anything. So, I mean, it's got, how many falls you have is how you're determining it. So, I mean, it had its own spin. And I mean, I like the way that they were able to, I'm glad that, they were able to incorporate the penalty box into it too. Like when Axiom jumped old boy in the penalty box and just beat the hell out of him and left him laying in the box and then shut the door. Like, I like that they were able to incorporate it. Me personally, I definitely would agree with your two settlements in that I think the women's match was probably the better of the two as far as the Iron Survivor Challenge. But I mean, I think as far as winners, when you talk about wanting to see those young and up and comers. I mean, I think we've already seen kind of what they think of Grayson Waller, being that he was already on Raw here in Detroit with AJ Styles, and then you've got on the other side, you've got Roxanne Perez, who, speaking of Ring of Honor, is a former Ring of Honor world champion. And, I really liked the element that Booker kind of brought in with the fact that he trained her and all that kind of stuff as well. So all in all, dude, I liked the Iron Survivor Challenge. I think they didn't do bad in who won. I was really surprised that they kept JD McDonough without scoring. I thought if anybody, I didn't think it would be him who goes scoreless. But, like I said, for all in all, I think it was good. I think Roxanne Perez is definitely the right one to win that, because I mean, to Chris's point, I think Mandy Rose and probably Toxic Attraction, if they take them with her, maybe headed to the main roster soon. Along with, the other NXT champion, we saw Braun Breaker and Apollo Crews in what was a pretty damn good match. I got to say, I've always been impressed by Apollo Crews, but the fact that he actually went for the press slam bulldog or the press slam power slam from Braun Breaker like that on a guy that's that fucking big, that was impressive as shit. Yeah. And I've said it for a while. I think Braun Breaker might be showing up in the Royal Rumble next month. But what do you think of Braun Breaker and Apollo Crews, J-Bone?
Yeah, that was a good match, dude. Good main event. Like you said, there's a lot of power in that match, dude. A lot of power in that match. Very entertaining. But I'm with you. I just want to see Braun, just call the kid up, man. Just call him up. There's so much talent there.
I think they're getting the seasoning though.
Yeah. But it goes back to what we questioned before. If you call him up now, who's the face of NXT? We don't have that yet. But I'm hoping at the very least, I would love to see him in the Royal Rumble, like you said. Get him in the Royal Rumble against a guy that's well known, just to have that good Royal Rumble face off that we used to see all the time. You know what I mean? I'd love to at least see that. I don't know who it would be. Maybe like Brock Lesnar or a big dude. Maybe, I don't know, whoever. Let's get him in there and toss Omos out or something. I'm cool with that. That would pop me. But hopefully we get him there. I'd love to see him in the Rumble.
Chris, what'd you think of Braun Breaker, bro?
It's funny. I talk with Duke Loves Wrestling, and you guys got to check him out on Twitter because he's fantastic. And
shout out to him.
There's
I
something
heard he just
missing.
talked to our friend Lindsay Snow.
Yeah, and I feel with Braun, there's something missing. Look, I get it. He's not his uncle. And Scott Steiner was a master on the mic, and also probably most people think certifiable crazy. Braun's not.
Steiner
He's
math, baby.
more- he's more just a little bit more mellow. So he hasn't had that feud where you look and go, okay, this is just going to elevate him. I don't know what you do with him. I mean, because right now you put him in the Royal Rumble, it's like, okay, well, that's great, but it's sort of, where does he go from there? You already have too many people who are already being set up for WrestleMania, who are even talking about bringing in every part timer, possible, whether it's Austin, Lesnar, The Rock, John Cena, and as we say this year, Roxanne Perez has just won the women's NXT World Championship.
Number one contender.
So at least with, get back to the thing here, I think Breakker stays in NXT just because, there's no plan. And I wish he would keep up. I would love to see him at WrestleMania. Reigns, let's say, retains one of the titles. Breakker, you could do like a little invasion where Breakker comes in with, say, Austin Theory and probably one of the Creed brothers, beats down Roman Reigns, and we are the new breed. We are the new group here. We're getting rid of the older guys. But I don't see that. I think the WWE are just too many of the old crowd is there for a while, and Breakker's going to be just sort of stuck right now.
So I'm not mad with him staying in NXT a little while because I feel like him being champion and getting used to being champion and having this litany of different types of opponents, I think that it's only going to do him good, but I think it's inevitable that it's not going to be very long before we see him go to the main roster. Donald said, "Oh no, Nexus 2.0."
I feel like we had this exact same conversation though a long time ago now. I don't know exact timetables, but at least a year ago, where we were saying, "Oh, he's ready. He needs to make his debut." I think it was around Rumble season when you, J-Bone, were talking about, "Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his debut at Rumble," and here we are, right? Like I don't know, man. It seems like if anything, the amount of talk around him has diminished, if anything. I mean, I can't speak to this, week by week skills and stuff like that because I'm not watching at that level, but I do pay attention to the outsider talk, I guess you can say, and it does seem like a little bit of the talk's dying off for sure.
I mean, he's in NXT, so I mean, it's not going to be as much talk as it was because they were bringing him on to Raw and all these things, but I definitely think he's tailor-made for the main roster. I don't think it's long before we'll see him. And again, just my personal opinion, I think him being in NXT longer and having this long reign as champion, I think it'll only help him.
Do you think he gets one of those surprise spots in the Rumble?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. Shit, I wouldn't be shocked if we see I wouldn't be shocked if we see a bunch of people from NXT over there. But speaking of people from NXT going up, what are your guys' thoughts on the New Day going down and becoming the first Triple Crown champs and going and winning them NXT and then winning? Actually, they're not the first Triple Crown champs because FTR did that. But with that being said, what do you think about New Day going down there and taking them belts off of Pretty Deadly? I liked it. I thought it was a damn good match. What did you think about New Day heading down to Deadline, Chris?
I mean, I get it. You're trying to keep the New Day sort of relevant. I mean, I hate this because I feel like I'm sort of the guy who's peeing in the punch bowl, as they say, but. I kind of wish New Day was just broken up. It's not the same. It's sort of like Hit Row without Swerve. It's not the same. Without Big E, they just feel like sort of, okay, these two goofy, sort of cruiserweights who are, dancing around, having fun. They're not going to win anything anymore. We know that. But they're sort of like the modern day version of the Bushwhackers, where they're there for the kids. So the kids can just clap their hands and sing and dance along. And they're great at NXT because they're an old hand. And so they know how to get, work good matches. They know how to help out with Pretty Deadly and Jensen and Briggs, the Creeds, even, Sheer, Alder Sheer, all those guys, they'll be fantastic. It's just break it up. I mean, I'm sorry, and I feel bad because Big E is one of those stories where you just sit there and it breaks your heart that he got taken out this early by a guy who just shouldn't have been wrestling him in the first place because he was too green. But yeah, here's what we got. It's basically the New Day in NXT. We're trying to keep him sort of relevant, and you look and go, just break him up. Like all good things must come to an end. Let it break up.
It'd be a big deal if they did that. That would be a very big deal. But like, who does it? Who's it gonna? Maybe Big E eventually gets back and turns on him. Like, what do you think happened?
Just have it like they have to, they lose to, let's say, Pretty Deadly again with the stipulation of if Pretty Deadly loses, they'll cut their hair. If New Day loses, well, they must break up forever. So then you can have them both go their separate ways, and if they ever have to, you can do their whole reunion thing. But it's, as I said, it's a lot like Hit Row. There's something missing, and you know what it is, and unfortunately, you just can't do anything about it because I hope I'm wrong. Everybody who I've talked to has raved up Big E as a guy and as a person, but he probably won't come back, and it's heartbreaking. It sucks. It's terrible, but without him,
I don't know. He said he's healing up pretty well so far. I thought everything I've seen said he says he's healing up well. But I mean, obviously, it's always touchy with the neck thing. But
yeah, it's healing up is one thing. Being cleared is a whole different thing. And I don't think with everything that goes on today, especially with medicals and insurances and everything that's going on in today's, world where it's easy to sue somebody, I don't see any doctor clearing Big E to wrestle again. It's like you broke your neck. Hey, we ain't just going to let you go back there and go, yes, let's do it one more time.
Yeah, it's a very, very thin line to walk, dude.
See, I kind of agree with what Donald's saying in the comments. For me, that was kind of my thoughts with the New Day going back there. I think them going there is going to help bring more light to a lot of the teams that are down there, and if they are going to be the teams that eventually are going to Raw and SmackDown, at least it'll make some of the people who aren't as familiar, more familiar with them. And I mean, again, maybe I'm just a fan of the New Day, but I just like that they're at least doing something with them because obviously I don't think it's any secret or too far-fetched to say that until something happens with this Roman part of the bloodline story, I don't really think that those belts are really going to be going anywhere anytime soon. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought, I feel like they could really do some good for some of the other teams that are going to be there. But we're going to have to see how things play out and see if there's, money to be made there. But speaking of money to be made, clearly our parlays from last week didn't win you any money because they didn't win me any money either. But you know who's going to get you some money? It's tax time, motherfuckers. And G3 Payroll, Tax, and Accounting can get you together. Make sure you check out the homies G3 Payroll and Tax. Get your taxes done. Tell Jack and them Knockouts and 3 Counts sent you, and I promise you, man, you're going to be looking good come tax season. Get you a new whip. Get you something nice. Go get yourself out the doghouse. Hit up G3 and they'll help you do it. But with that being said, we had Friday night, you had Bellator 289, which I don't think it's too far-fetched to say was the better of the two cards. You had Patchy Mix getting the big dub. I enjoyed the shit out of that. I thought that was dope. The Rafion Stotts. Why am I drawing
Sabatilla?
Yes, I couldn't spit that out for some reason. I don't know why I had it there, but Stotts and Sabatello. We're gonna have to talk about this judging because all in all, I thought Bellator had the better card. But man, I feel like judging is going to be the story of the combat sports side of what we're talking about. But before we get into that, what were your guys' thoughts on Bellator as a card?
Bellator yet again didn't do much at all of promotion on their own side, right? The only promotion that was done on this fight was via Stotts and Sabatello. Both of them did many rounds of media through all the common podcasts and MMA shows and such. And I thought they did a good job of building anticipation for this fight. And I thought somebody else who did a decent job of kind of a breakdown of it was Ariel Helwani, who was talking about it in the lead up and was saying all Bellator needs is for this main event to be at least mostly entertaining. And I think this will be a success. I feel like that main event wasn't necessarily that. I feel as though with Sabatello just chasing takedowns and then never doing anything with them, Stotts not really being overly aggressive because he was worried about being taken down the whole time. It was, I didn't expect more because that is what I expected going into the match. I knew the way Sabatello fights. I knew the way Stotts fights. I feel like Stotts maybe could have brought a little bit more because he has a lot more tools in his tool bag than what he was able to display Friday night. That being said, though, I feel like the card as a whole, I disagree with your thought on that, Kyle. I feel like maybe main card for main card. Yeah, you could say that their main card was maybe
like
better.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, but I'm a hardcore, so I watch prelims up, right? And
I'm talking about for Joe Schmo that's going to sit down and watch a fucking fight. Which one was more entertaining to watch? And with the way that shit went,
yeah, but it wasn't though.
That
because
you're telling me Jared Gordon and fucking that Jan Blachowicz fight was...
those two were both stinkers as well. But that Darren Till fight with Dricus Duplessis, that was a banger. That was a fun, entertaining fight. I mean, it was both of them. I feel like were
both of them weren't the best card I've ever seen.
Yeah, right. And we kind of expected that. I feel like more so, at least with the UFC on paper, right? Like we expected maybe Paddy would do something that was entertaining and maybe co-main slot worthy. And I definitely don't feel as though that's what that performance stuck out to be. But to finish my thought on Bellator, I feel like the two standouts gotta be Patchy Mix and Liz Carmouche, man. To what Chris was saying earlier, Liz Carmouche, that first fight, her opponent's name escapes me right now. I know it's like Julie or Julia or something, but I can't think of her last name.
Juliana Velasquez.
I thought in their first fight that she had shown that she was the better fighter, and then all of a sudden, through circumstance of position, had gotten taken down, and then the fight was called off immediately, like very, very quickly, without much reason for it. And I was one of the people. I think I even brought it up on the show that Bellator, that was not great look on their part. That being said, man, Liz Carmouche really showed me wrong in this rematch, man. She really put her skills on showcase in this, was able to basically do whatever she wanted. I was genuinely surprised with how much she was able to just run through her on this one, man. And then same thing with Patchy Mix, man. Patchy Mix, he looked like he stepped his game up so much. I'm guilty of, I guess, kind of tuning out of Patchy Mix, right? Like if you look back in his career trajectory 4 fights ago, we'll say, he just wasn't as entertaining as he is now, I guess you could say. He was very submission oriented, but he wasn't able to lock him in. It just seemed like he didn't have the level of either training or focus, one of the two, that he currently has now worked his way up to. And that being said, I feel like this Patchy Mix versus Stotts final is going to be way more entertaining of a fight than what we've seen in the main event, Stotts versus Sabatello, once that one does end up playing out.
Chris, I know you've got a unique perspective of this because, another reason people should be checking out your channel. You got to talk to Rafi on Scott for
unfortunately,
this
I
one, man.
disagree with everything he said almost. And I feel bad, but first, let's start out with Apache Mix. Look, the guy right now is winning. I mean, when Tatiana Suarez is your girlfriend, kudos to you because your girlfriend can beat up any one of our girlfriends. But he's always been. Look, I think a lot of people got down on him because of the Archuleta fight, and I said before when that fight got made for the Bellator bantamweight title, it was a bad fit at the time because Archuleta can go, and he has a gas tank that just never ends. And Patrick had always been, had not gone. He hadn't gone past 2 rounds. I mean, you look at his Bellator career. Ricky Bandejas, first round, submission victory in 1 minute and 6 seconds. Isaiah Chapman, it'll take a little bit longer, 3 minutes and 49 seconds. And Yuki Motoya, submission once again, minute 37. And then it's Archuleta, and there's a huge jump. He was dominating the first 2 rounds, and then he got tired. And to me, the last 3 fights, especially the Horiguchi fight, to me is what opened my eyes when he went out there and he dominated Horiguchi for 5 rounds. He didn't look tired. And against Magomedov, a guy who would come in there with a boogeyman complex of, hey, this guy's bad news. Hey, this guy here, he barely, it was close loss to Rafion Stotts, nothing to shake your head off. He had beaten Peter Yan, lost to Peter Yan by decision. He had been beating people up, and Mix just went in there and just bulldozed him and made him look almost a lesser level. To me, it's what I think what Bellator loves. They get the matchup they want. They got Stotts versus Mix. You got sort of the fly trash talking, Stotts, who has, he has come into his zone. That was the best part about him and Sabatello. They they wanted to talk trash. They didn't care. They didn't like each other. They made it known they really didn't give a rat's ass about each other. And you'll have now, the 2 young guys that are Bellator owned, not, UFC guys they stole or guys who are, older in the tooth that they came in. These are 2 young kids who they've developed, they've built, and are going to be in the finals. And then the winner takes on Sergio Pettis. I think Dalton Rosta, looking great. That's huge for that middleweight division, which they need as many contenders as possible. And I can see him fighting for the title the next probably 1 or 2 fights to get maybe more seasoned guy, but he looks the part. And as we talked off air with Liz Carmouche, this is somebody who, for years, I think she got tired of actual stigma of, yes, she's the first ever gay lesbian fighter to fight in the UFC and fight for a world title. Now she's now a Bellator champion, and you look at what she's done. The back-to-back wins over Gianna Velasquez,
And what a finish
the
in
big
this
win
fight.
over
That
Deanna
armbar was
Bennett.
gnarly.
I mean, yeah, she's come into her own, and she just, for somebody who for years always, it felt like just losing the big ones. Like she would get to, the title fight and lose to a Misha Tate, or she'd lose to, Valentina, Shevchenkov, or Marlos Kunin, and you felt bad because she was just right there when she got to it. After in Bellator, she's found her home, and Bennett, Horto, Kanawatabi, even 2 finishes against Velasquez. They get their fight they want. It's going to be now. She's talked about it. She wants to fight. Lima Lay McFarland versus herself, probably Hawaii. That's something they've been talking about. I feel Bellator, had a great card. The only bad part was Douglas Crosby and his 50-40-45, and everybody looking going, oh my God, Crosby's at it again.
Yeah. At least this time, for the rarest of occasions, there's something being at least somewhat done about it because there's a now investigation from what I've seen.
Well, dude, they don't want anybody else having any more ammo to try to say MMA is fixed after this whole James Krause thing. I mean, speaking of Bellator, even Bellator's come out. I mean, dude, it's only looking worse and worse for James Krause as we get. I mean, I was listening to something earlier today where they said that he's now sold all his stake in, Glory MMA, and Bellator's already said that he's not going to be permitted to coach, at Bellator either now.
Well, I seen Scott Coker's official statement. He said the same thing. That Dana White said, it's not a personal thing against Krause. It's what the state commissions are basically requiring at this point due to the pending investigation.
Sure,
once
maybe
the
it's
investigation
not personal
plays
against him, but I mean, it is what it is. He's not.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. I mean, it's rare.
And when
that
you
we
basically
see a
said if you train with James
based-
Krause, you can't fight here.
Yeah,
you're done.
Yeah, that's where you
He's
see the selling of the stake in his gym and stuff like that. Yeah, he's ultimately looking like he's going to have to take a complete step back from the MMA world. But I'm very curious to see what comes of his gym. I mean, he had built up quite an impressive roster over there, and I'm not sure all of them were there just because of Krause. I'm sure a lot of them were there because of a multitude of reasons. So I'm curious to see what will end up happening with that if the ban gets lifted for people that are at Glory now that Krause isn't there, like those type of situations. But I just wanted to make sure that it was out there that Scott Coker wanted, like the way he said it was very.
Sure, it wasn't like he was shitting on him, but
yeah,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute with the UFC thing. But as far as what you brought up with Doug Crosby, man, oh my God, MMA
right?
MMA does not want them looking into them. No way, no how, no nothing. And man, could you not have had a worse way for that to happen? Because look, I get it. People can be humans, but man, I like Danny Sabatello, but to say that he won that fight 50-45, I mean, what the fuck fight were you watching? Like, I just don't.
That's rough, right? That's really bad, and I agree. That's
like,
very
what
questionable.
And
at
50-45,
at the least, what I've been saying the whole time is they need to make these judges give a 2-line statement, right? You have 60 seconds to write a short, even a full paragraph. Just write a short statement on why you scored that round the way you did. That's all you got to do. It would make so many things clear, later on. I felt as though the damage that was inflicted. I've said that a million times too, but it seems like the pushback on that from the commission side is
what
unreal.
Happened last weekend, I mean, that's all we're hearing between this fight and Paddy the Baddy on Saturday, and to think that the same guy was on the judges table for both fucking fights in different states. I mean, that's saying something. But J-Bone, you've been quiet for a minute, bro. What do you think about old Doug Crosby?
Look, man, you fucked up. You fucked up bad. You fucked up bad. And anybody who's involved better get out now, because it's gonna get worse from here, dude. It's gonna get a lot worse from here.
I mean, I can't speak to him personally, right? But I don't know. I don't think it was a malicious thing. I think it's just like
no.
I think it was
you wouldn't want to do it where you make yourself look stupid like he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was he just truly didn't score the fight correct. That's where I feel as though a brief description, open scoring, of course, would help a ton, because then you see as an athlete in between rounds. But I'm talking about
and the crowd can look and be like, what the fuck fight is this guy watching?
Yeah, but I'm talking about from an outsider's perspective, when you're actually looking back and reviewing the reasons why people were like, open scoring is one thing, right? Boos and cheers and stuff from the crowd, right? Everybody's going to boo at a counter fight because all of a sudden the judges scored it the other way. Like, there's stuff like that that's involved in that too. But I feel like, to a point, open scoring would absolutely help a ton in the fight. But what I'm talking about is the analysis after the fact, right? And to your point, Kyle, I think that even the more damning thing in all of this is the fact that how can you go from the Mohegan Sun, which is Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken, and then go judge a pay-per-view in less than a 24-hour span that you had to take a 4-hour flight or whatever to get there. In the event you were at last night didn't end till midnight plus. So you're telling me you got on a flight at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning or something, or hey, you got a little bit of sleep and then raced to the airport at 2 o'clock. It's crazy to me that at the highest level of this game, there was one guy that needed to be for two of the highest level, events in the country at this time. One guy. There's only 3 guys at the table. You need the same guy, to fly across the damn country. You couldn't find any judges in Vegas or anything.
Right.
Like, that's what confuses me the most in all of this. I don't know if it's necessarily damning in a like, oh, somebody's being sneaky way, but it's like, come on, man. This guy's not going to be in a clear head if he had his whole weekend now has literally been, I'm going to do what I got to do throughout the week. All right. And then I got to race into Connecticut to do this event for Bellator. And then as soon as that wraps up, I got to make sure I get all my bags together, probably have them in the car already at the Bellator event in the back, ready to go, hit the airport, and then be in Vegas to event a pay-per-view and then give my input on a title fight that I end up, come on now, guys.
You could have picked anybody else at that point. It could have been anybody,
Anybody. Give me fucking Adelaide Bird, right? I mean, give me the other person people complain about. I mean, at least it's not. At least you know what I'm saying, right? There's
the chances that it's the same guy in both fights. But Chris, what'd you think about the judging with Doug Crosby, bro?
Horrible.
I've talked with this, whether it's been Manny Montreal, Michael Montero, Christopher Carlson, all of them, from the Ring Magazine, Boxing Blog Talk Radio, Marcel Dorff, James Lynch of MMA formerly of SI and MMA Kings, great Nolan King, and the biggest problem is just their political, appointees. They have these jobs. They're plum jobs. They know who's they know whose bread is getting buttered, as they say, with the promoters, with the athletic commissions. A lot of them donate to the political parties, so they never can lose a job. I mean, it takes a lot for a judge to lose their job, and usually it's because either they said something very offensive or they got caught doing something illegal. But they're there, and you try to, I've talked with promoters and everybody. They've tried, all right, to push for more judges who are understanding of MMA scoring. They've tried, setting up classes here. It all comes down to you have and even in boxing, you see it a lot. These guys they are who they are. This is how they score fights. It's sort of they do a crap job and.
Okay, but let me ask you this though: do you think
scoring? I've tried for open scoring, but the problem is that, especially in boxing, is you get all of a sudden a fighter will realize, he's up 3-4 rounds, and he with 2 rounds to go, and he starts getting on the pedal and he starts holding, and next thing you know, it becomes an ugly fight. Same with MMA. Guy realizes, I'm up 2 rounds, nothing. I'm going to win this fight as long as we don't get knocked down, and the fight's going to suck. People figure it out. I'd say the only way possible is if you have guys like, and this comes down to Scott Coker and it comes down to Dana White, you put these judges in one of our fights, we will not come back to your state. We will literally make sure we never come back to Vegas or Connecticut or California. And I know it's a hard thing to do. It sucks. It swallows. But
but I don't think that Dana's going that hard, especially in
fighters
Vegas.
Are losing so much money, and you just to say, don't let go of judge's scorehand. It's just like me saying to somebody who's depressed, don't get depressed. It's just hollow.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. Dana didn't seem too mad by it because we heard him say in the post-fight press conference, he said that that was on Jared Gordon for the way that he fought the third round. So I mean, he wasn't too bothered by the way it went. I mean, let's be honest, we know the UFC wanted Paddy to win.
Yeah, I mean, his bread got buttered in the right way, so he was happy. I'm guessing if it was the exact opposite, if it had been Paddy Pimblett who got the wrong end of a scorecard, Dana would be going ballistic and calling for people's heads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Fact. Can't argue it. I mean, we talked a little bit about Bellator. UFC 282 got ravaged before we ever got to it. Our parlays went to shit.
Immediately.
I mean, yep, the parlays went to shit. I won some money on Chris Curtis.
There you go.
But with that being said,
what was your guys' favorite fight of that night? Not to interrupt, Kyle, but what was your guys' favorite fight of that night? Which one was the one that stuck out to you? It might have been
Chris Curtis and Buckley, to be honest.
Okay. It's not a bad pick.
I didn't have a personal favorite fight, but I had a great favorite moment was that young cat dude. What was his name? Rojas Jr.
Yeah,
rolling. Oh my gosh. At 18 years old, dude, this kid he's a phenom. Like, look at that kid. He's just gonna get bigger, dude.
That's what's crazy to me is he's fighting at 135, but you can clearly see he's bigger than a lot of these guys. I don't know if it's just because that density's not there in some of the muscles and stuff yet, or whatever the case be. But yeah, he's big for the weight class, and he's just muscling these dudes around somehow. And you're like, he doesn't even have his grown man strength yet, or none of that, and he's still, in puberty. I was watching his Ariel interview earlier. He's in his freaking fuzzy plaid pajamas and shit still, like a little kid, and it's just like, man, dude, imagine being Jay Perrin, right? That must really not feel great right now, you went in there, you talked shit. Our guy
Mondo.
I know, but Mondo didn't talk shit to him, right? This Jay Perrin went in there.
He was the one that had to fight the 17-year-old kid on the Contender Series.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to brush over that. That's what I'm getting at. But imagine being Jay Perrin here, and you're talking shit to the kid at weigh-ins, talking about you ain't getting a single takedown, you ain't nothing but a bitch about it. Really, was trying to talk that shit, and then got steamrolled. So yeah, I agree. That was definitely maybe my standout moment. But fight-wise, it had to be old Billy Q and his incredible comeback against Anthony Hernandez. That was a wild – Alexander Hernandez, sorry. That was a wild fight right there, man.
Billy Q is always fun to watch. I mean, Chris, what were your thoughts overall on UFC 282? Was there a fight that you liked best out of it? What were your thoughts on that one?
So I'll have this. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll start with the good. That's Ilya Topuria is just a bad man. I mean, you look at what he's doing.
That one hurt my feelings. I just want to say that real quick. That one hurt my feelings.
Busted Corey's parlay.
But you look at what just with dominance right here. It's Yusuf Zalal. Unanimous decision victories debut. Was you for encore? Knocks out Damon Jackson. After that, violently knocks out poor Ryan Hall. Goes up to lightweight, slaps around, knocks out Jai Herbert, and then Bryce Mitchell, who everybody was talking about, leading up to the fight. This is the fight everybody wants to watch. It's Bryce Mitchell, that tough Texarkana, Arkansas conservative hero we like, who's also undefeated, 15-0. It's gonna be a great fight. We're gonna be watching this. No. Topuria just arm triangle chokes him in the second round. I mean, and this is the guy who wanted Paddy Pimblett. He was trying to fight Pimblett before this, which that would be beautiful. You would see Dana cry, you'd see Paddy get beat up, and you'd see El Matador just doing violent things, the worst things to a Brit since World War II. This guy is just badass.
Yeah.
The bad part, unfortunately, is just Paddy Pimblett. Unfortunately, he can't strike. He cannot throw punches. It's just clear that he has no concept of, all right, there's a thing called a left hook. You got to watch out for it. And thank God 3 blind mice saved him. the ugly part, and I feel terrible about this, but Dana just needs to go. He needs to be just let go. When you were crapping on the main event because it was close, because you fell asleep, because once again, these fight cards start too late for most of us here. Welcome, Dana, to my world. And then you complain, oh, I lost, I got bored, or I fell asleep during the last 2 rounds, which were, just it was action, packed. It was technical. It was hard hitting. And he goes, well, it's these guys' fault. Neither of them won the title. Now he's giving it back to Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill, I mean. And it screams just once again, Dana taking care of one of his buddies in Jamal Hill. And he also takes care of Glover Teixeira. And Glover Teixeira basically gets away with going, I don't want to take a guy on last minute notice. And I'm going to reward him by going, all right, we're going to give you a title fight then in Brazil against a more rookie guy. Yeah, but that's your punishment, Glover. That's your punishment for turning down a fight.
Okay, here.
I don't, not to counteract that, but I feel like Dana's outlook wasn't necessarily a punishment thing because he had noted that he still respected Glover's decision. He just felt as though Ankalaev was the one that needed to be in the match, and if he wasn't going to accept that fight, then maybe Glover will be the next in line. But that's who we wanted. That's basically the way he worded it. And that being said, I feel like, to your point, the main event maybe didn't deserve all that poo-poo that it got, because it definitely got some of it from both the fans and from the head office type in the UFC. The Dana thing, you definitely don't need to be shitting on your main event pay-per-view just because your co-main and your main event weren't the most exciting of fights when the rest of the card was still pretty good. Maybe just highlight that instead of highlighting the lowlights. The Jamal Hill thing, I'm excited as hell to see a Michigan boy go in there and fight for the title. I'm sure my fellow Michigan guys here can attest to that.
The show, Jamal, if you hear this, the door's always open.
Yeah, I'm sure he's flooded with media right now. But the fact that we can say we got him when he was in his young rising career, and now we have a UFC contendant, somebody that's fought for the belt on our show. That's cool to say. But beyond that, I like the matchup. I think it's just very surprising. It is surprising, to your point. I didn't expect Jamal Hill necessarily to be in this spot as this quick, but I still like the matchup, man. It's still going to be fun, and Brazil needed something to cap off that pay-per-view. So,
J-Bone, what do you
screams though of? I hate to jump in quickly, but you could have done a rematch then with Teixeira versus Ankalaev, or you could have done rewarded Blachowicz for taking this fight on short notice and going, well, all right, it's going to be Blachowicz versus Teixeira. It's once again Dana taking care of his guys, and that's been. We went back earlier to the Paddy Pimblett Crosby thing and why, Dana's saying, oh, yeah, well, Gordon should have done this. When his guys are doing well and you're one of his guys, he takes care of you. He's done that, since the days of, Chuck Liddell to
Tito,
even Manny Hughes to Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, Brock Lesnar, Paddy Pimblett, Glover Teixeira, they're his guys. He'll take care of them. And yet you knew if it had been the other way around. But you don't think
that Glover didn't earn that or deserve that to some degree? Because I mean, if you're talking about a number one contender out of it, I mean.
But he basically goes, I don't want to take on this guy too short notice. And instead he gets a guy, Jamal Hill, who's more in his wheelhouse and who's more younger. I mean, it's basically, think of it like the other way around. Imagine if it should be on the other foot, that it had been Blachowicz all of a sudden getting the nod against Teixeira, and Blachowicz goes, nah, there's a little bit of a tougher fight here. I want somebody else instead. It's too short notice for me. He'd be sent to the back in Siberia. It's just Dana playing favorites. And that's what bothers a lot of people in MMA.
But is there anybody that really deserves a title shot more than Glover right now, though?
Glover got knocked out in his last fight. Now we're going, okay, we're going to do a
but he
rematch.
almost knocked him out in that fight, too.
But how many times have we seen guys who get knocked out or lose and they never get their rematch in the UFC? A lot.
But I'm just saying, I
Glover's
think because of the state of
Glover's
the
a
light
favorite.
heavyweight division, though, I feel like as far as the top contenders, I feel like Glover is like, when you're looking down the thing to say who should be the next person, like I feel like it's kind of
with the
hard to pass
way
over him.
with the way so many of the matchups in the upper echelon of the division had played out as of recently, with injuries just kind of being prone with both the Anthony Smith thing and the Rakic thing. I feel like it, to your point, Kyle, it's hard to highlight somebody else that's a clear number one. And if that's truly how the head of the organization feels, whether you agree with it or not, and whether you think it should be a sport where it's just truly based on rankings or not, that's not how it goes. And in this circumstance, yeah, maybe it is a little bit of picking favorites. Maybe it is a little bit of, hey, this guy's always puts on entertaining fights, so we're going to move him into the, maybe it is something like that. But I feel like for 205, you had to do something. You couldn't just leave the belt be afloat for another 6 months or something. And the fact that you have a pay-per-view, like I had mentioned, that I felt truly did need some type of crowning jewel on top. It basically fell in his lap. Once he heard draw, I don't even know if he had to hear draw. He was probably already working on some
They
type
said
of
that
other.
he had called.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that he called Jamal Hill while they were still in the cage.
Yeah, that's literally from the interview I was watching on Ariel earlier. Jamal was breaking it down, and he was like, "Yeah, as Ankalaev was giving his post-fight speech, I was accepting the title bout," and it's like, damn, like, all right, like they weren't playing
Way
games.
to keep it moving, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up about the light heavyweight title. That's nice until you figure, well, what's going on with the heavyweight title? Why aren't you pushing that? Oh, because you want that John Jones versus Francis Ngannou fight. And let's face it, when have we heard of a heavyweight title getting defended? Oh, we have no idea. And they haven't talked about interim card. They've kept it on hold. They did the same thing when Conor McGregor was double champion and then wanted to go and fight Floyd Mayweather. Those titles got put on hold. So that's why I find the whole thing with all that heavy bullshit. It's like, no, you're taking care of Glover, who's one of your guys. I get it. And you're giving him Jamal Hill, who's becoming a UFC guy as well. So it's all right. Well, we're going to take care of my two guys, these two Europeans who don't speak English. Neither one of them, is in my good graces for just because. Screw them. You didn't fight hard enough. It wasn't a stand and bang, bro. Stand and bang. And once again, it's Dana's guys are being, given special privileges.
I don't know, man. I just feel like this one in particular is more of a perfect storm thing, only because, especially with UFC being in Brazil and all that too, to be able to have a title fight and to have Glover of all the Brazilians to be the one to be fighting for the title when he's a sentimental favorite because he's been around forever. I don't know, man. I like the fight. I'm surprised that it's Jamal Hill, but again, with the way everything played out, it's kind of crazy. I mean, J-Bone, what about you? What do you think about from the Anthony Smith side of things, bro? Where do you if you're Anthony Smith, how are you feeling about that? And what do you think Anthony Smith, if you're Anthony Smith, what do you want out of this? Because I gotta say, I gotta give dude credit because he came right out on the post show and was like, I feel like somebody owes me a favor, and put that right out in the ether. So
yeah. I mean, he's definitely in line, man. Like, you gotta, like you said, with the way the top of the division is kind of playing out, it's like, who's left, right? Who's left? Jamal Hill's ranked what, 7? Wasn't it? The last I checked, 6 or 7 or something like that. 6?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's saying a lot right there. You're the top of your division's kind of getting real thin right now because of injuries and whatever the case is. But Anthony Smith should be up there too. If not, depending on the timeline, perhaps should be getting a shot real soon within the next fight or two, I would think.
I really imagine if that other fight had not, the last fight with Ankalaev, if it had not played out the way it did, it probably would be Anthony Smith in this role and not Jamal Hill. Because I feel as though with the desk work and everything that they have Anthony Smith do, clearly the UFC likes him, whether that be as a personality or whatever the case be. They've had him main event a ton of times. Clearly, they like the guy. I'm a fan of his, so of course I'm going to back him. But I had mentioned this to Kyle as soon as I had heard that the Jamal Hill fight was taking place. I'm actually glad because when the Lionheart Smith versus Hill fight was supposed to take place, it was truly like two of my favorites in the division fighting each other. And it was going to be one of those fights where I just couldn't root for anybody. It would have been like a clash of all of my fandom inside of me at 205. And now, watching Jamal Hill's interview on Ariel Helwani, he's talking about how Anthony Smith's going to be out there to help him train for Glover. So it's just so funny the way this sport works, you know.
Do you think that? I mean, let's just say somebody pulls out of that fight due to injury or something. Do you think he's next in line to step in?
Oh hell yeah, it gotta be.
You would think, right?
Yeah,
wouldn't that be?
You would imagine.
I'm helping you train, but hey, got to go to the other side here.
Hey, don't let me hit that leg lock a little too hard on you. Make sure you tap.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we put a bow on UFC 282, obviously we got to talk about the other elephant in the room. Doug Crosby has reared his head again. What are your guys' thoughts on Paddy the Baddy and Jared Gordon? Chris, what do you think on that fight, bro?
Gordon got screwed, and you as soon as those scorecards got read out, you knew he was getting screwed. And this isn't, and you feel bad because, I feel, Gordon has been one of those guys who is, had battled addiction problems. He's even talked about at times, being in prison, almost committing suicide. If he'd won, this would have been his big fight where he gets not maybe launched to startup, but he gets, a lot more respect, a lot more money, a lot more opportunities. And I know Dana keeps like that old saying, "Oh, well, don't leave it in the judges' hands." Blah blah blah. Your heart feels bad because 3 judges basically screwed him, and it adds to the the stigma of fans getting to feel like our fight's fixed. Does Dana control the judges? I know Dana will say to me, "Oh, that's effing bullshit," and he'll say I'm an idiot or something like that, but. Doesn't matter what I think. When the fans start thinking that, that's dangerous, and that's what I think this fight was dangerous for all parties.
Can't really argue that. J-Bone, what are you thinking on Jared Gordon and Paddy? Did you think Paddy won the fight? Did you think Jared won the fight?
No, I didn't think Paddy won the fight at all. He was screwed, dude. Jared Gordon was screwed. That's what it comes down to. You need your money maker, and anytime Paddy gets on these cards, we know it makes a lot of money, and the fandom is there. And he's very popular, and I get it. It's a money grab, but when it comes down to competition and the spirit of MMA in a whole, it's bullshit because that fight shouldn't have went there. He lost that fight. Bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everybody's sentiments. If I was the judge on the night, I definitely feel as though I would have had that in Flash Gordon's corner as well. But that being said, I don't feel as though I feel as strongly as everybody else does about this. I feel like maybe timing is really the big thing in this and not necessarily the outcome, I guess you can say itself, right? If it wasn't for the timing with the whole James Krause thing and Canada, multiple providences and stuff, short-termly at least stopping gambling on UFC and stuff like that, I feel like all of that really made the snowball that where now this bad decision is like just kind of continued to push that ball and made it maybe a little bit bigger. But I feel like had this have happened 6 months ago when he fought Jordan Levitt, if people thought Jordan Levitt won the fight and Paddy ended up getting the victory, then it wouldn't have been quite as big of a thing as it is right now. I feel like it's just timing and circumstance that have kind of blown this to the level that it is. That being said, yeah, I feel like Gordon won the fight. When I was watching it, the way I mean, I was, enjoying my weekend festivities. May have been smoking, may have been, bullshitting halfway through it. But also, I was mostly paying attention. I felt like when that first round wrapped up, I looked over at you, Kyle, and I said, I feel like it was probably Gordon's, but I could see how it could still be a Paddy round.
We weren't hiding from the feds.
Yeah. But that being said, I feel like I could see a way where Paddy got the scorecard in some wrongful way, right? I don't agree with the decision, but I could see a way where, to your point, maybe they feel as though he's the promotional favorite, so they lean that direction or whatever the case be. But one thing I really liked in all this that I feel like is not getting enough attention is Big John calling out his own son on his scorecard. I thought that was pretty great. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but he was also.
I didn't hear he called him out, but I heard his son was one of the judges.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily like call him out, but he told on his podcast, he talked about a conversation that they had after the fight where he had said that he feels as though his son got that one completely wrong and explained to him why. And he didn't really get into detail on what his son had said. So I'd be curious more to hear that since he was the judge and all this. But I digress.
I gotta agree with you. Like, when I watched it live, like, I didn't immediately think like it was as big a robbery. But then when you couple that with like seeing like the outrage on Twitter, man, like, I mean, it was a close. I mean, it was a lot closer fight than it was made, but I mean, I definitely, I don't know, man.
That's what I guess my issue is with it is, did maybe Gordon deserve the victory? Yes. To your point, Chris, would this have been the biggest opportunity of his life? 110%. But that being said, the way the new criteria reads with it being based mostly on damage, even though looking back at the fight, I've rewatched it as just a live view, and then I've done both that and watched the Weasel's breakdown where he does individual strike by strike, adds takedowns into the mix, and gives you his final report card round by round. It was closer than people are saying, man. And for it to be, I don't think Paddy won, but I don't think it was like some astronomical robbery.
Got beat up either.
Yeah, it wasn't like some astronomical robbery, and especially with the new criteria being based almost entirely around damage as the main criteria for scoring. I feel like Paddy was the one that was landing a little bit more harder shots. Jared was landing more consistently, but it wasn't really with any power. And then when he would take him down, he wasn't doing anything with it. So to your point, Chris, he's also fighting one of the top, whether you think Paddy is or not, he's in the UFC. So he's
he was the biggest
level fighter in the world.
Sure.
Well, I'm not talking star. I'm talking as fighter talent. He's fighting one of the top level guys in the world. You can't always get finishes in those fights, but you can be a little more active when you secure some of those positions that he was able to get.
I definitely feel that, dude. It was, I don't know. Like I said, it's definitely not a good look, especially when you have the same guy in both fights. I thought what, Dana said after the fight, like, I mean, realistically, against a guy like Paddy Pimblett, wouldn't you want to pin him against the cage so that he didn't have room to move and strike, seeing as that's, how most of his fights went. I mean, tough break. It's a crazy thing, and it's a decision where we're kind of left wondering what's next. But, speaking of fights that leave us, wondering what's next for a fighter, I mean, Chris, you cover a lot more of the boxing end than we get to a lot of times. And you had some thoughts on the other big fight of the weekend, and that was Toefimo Lopez stepping back into the ring. And man, is there a lot of thoughts on Lopez's performance. So tell us what you thought about that. Tell me what you thought about the fight and how you're feeling coming off of that one.
Well, you and I talked off air about it. I mean, you hear Teofimo going, "Am I done? Is this it for me?" When
Do I
that's
still got it?
scary. Yeah,
That's what kills me. Do I still
yeah,
got
that
it?
is
Yeah.
that's scary when you hear that from a fighter. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, that means something's wrong in the entire breakdown here. And look, it's been I'm not gonna lie, it's been a rough 2 years for Teo. I mean, since COVID, he had the birth of his son, his wife divorced him, took the kid. He lost to you know George Kambosos in a fight, which afterwards, according to some reports, he had health problems during that fight. That he kept quiet. Um,
Mhm.
his camp looked like his corner, which I'll give to his father. Looks like chaos. And the Sandor Martin fight just showed, but there's a reason why a lot of these guys are in weight classes. And at 135, Taylor is a beast, and he's physically beating people up. He's mauling them. At 140, he's not as powerful. He's not as strong. He got dropped against Martin. He wins a split decision, which is pretty controversial. I had it from Martin. A lot of people did. And now the problem I have is that the biggest issue for him is his trainer, and that's his father, who is I will say, the Alonzo Ball of boxing. He's going out there. Oh, my son was going to be better than Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is scared of us here. Oh yeah, just f him up here, bro. F him up. F him up. Hey, you know what? Just knock him out, motherfucker. Knock him out here. Wearing gold outfits. Talking trash. And in the perfect world, you would have fired him by now. But because of the bond, because of the fact that when the last 2 years, when there was chaos, like the marriage got so bad that Teo's mother and sister did not speak to Teo because he got married to this woman. The father's always been in the corner. So, as I said, there's a lot of people I know who have said the same thing. There's a lot of people in boxing who have even said, "Oh, there's people in Teo's camp want him to get rid of his father." But nobody sees it happening yet, and until that happens, you look at Teo, go, he's a mess. He's not the same guy. He's not. There is no adult in the room, and the bigger child is leading the other child. Basically, it's the blind leading the blind.
Corey, what do you think about what we saw from Toefimo Lopez? What do you think about the trainer situation? Does he need to cut his pops loose?
So that's I for footnote, I have yet to watch the fight in its full. I watched highlights, and I had seen a lot on social media after the fact of, like he was saying, with the post fight. It wasn't even an interview. It was just him kind of standing there in his corner, like contemplating his own thoughts, contemplating what, like he had noted, does he still got it? Is this still for him? Type of, like. And I don't know, man. I feel like there's definitely positives and negatives, right, to having family in your corner. Whenever you're working with family, like in that regard, of course, that they have your best interest in mind more often than not, because they're got your back type of mentality. But also, they can also kind of steer you in wrong directions without allowing yourself to take a step back and view it from a more professional perspective, I guess you could say. And I feel like that may be what we're seeing here with the Teofimo Lopez thing. I feel like he's still an incredibly skilled fighter. To your point, maybe the weight class was a bit of an issue thing, at least more than he had thought coming into this fight. But I don't know, man. I don't know if that Kambosos loss took some ego out of him that he's not willing to admit, and that maybe is hurting him, whether it be in his fights or in training or whatever the case be. But it's hard to say, man, because he's still skilled, but it's like I don't know. It's like he's missing a piece of that puzzle ever since that fight. And I don't know if it was, like you said, the injuries that he was dealing with. I know he dealt with a decently long recovery. if you believe his medical stories that he was telling leading into this fight and stuff. But I don't know, man. He's somebody that I feel like got an incredible rise once he beat Lomachenko. And I don't know if that, I don't want to say I don't know if he was rightfully deserving of that or not. I feel like that might be a little bit harsh to put on him. But I feel like to this point, I don't know, man. He
His
still
medal's
has a
being
lot to show.
tested.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
It doesn't. I don't think it helps that. When you talk father son combinations, the ones that do great, it's usually the fathers have this sort of presence where they're calming influence, whether it's
Hmm.
or they are still the adult and they're still just they know the role. Sean Porter and his father. You have Demetrius Andrade and his father. Joe Calzaghe and his dad. Shane Mosley and Jack Mosley. I mean, the fathers basically it was all right. They're to be seen, not heard. They know when to put, crack the whip. They know when to pull back. Even Benavidez, and Dave Benavidez and his father. But there's always that sense of like the father's not going to be the one trying to take the credit. But Teo and his father, it's a whole different beast. It's the father. He's in the gold outfit one fight, and after Teo wins his last fight, he's stepping in front of his son, the tongue, whacking out with but basically the victory pose. It's like you look at that corner and it's like, who's the adult? Who's the one giving you good advice? It's almost like they're two brothers who are training each other. And I remember when I spoke with Jesus Ramos, who a young kid just like Teo, his father trains him. It's like, no, my dad makes sure, like, that he is. This is a corner. There's no back talk. He's instructions. That it's calm. Robert Garcia, same thing. There's sort of almost like a structure. And with Teo, you don't see that. It's a father who's like a soccer parent from hell, just shouting things, and there's no logic to it.
To your point, I remember watching him one time. I believe it was on the Schmoes podcast, and they had Toefimo Lopez on there, and it basically had boiled into interviewing his dad after about 15 minutes through the podcast. It wasn't even interviewing Teofimo no more. He was just sitting back while his dad was just, rambling on and answering questions for him and stuff. So you can I definitely see what you're saying in that.
It'll be interesting to see the way it plays out, bro. I mean, Teofimo's definitely got skills inside the boxing ring, but if last weekend showed anything, it's like we've said, I feel like the overwhelming theme of that is that his medal is being tested since losing his belt. He said he felt like he was only back to 70% since being sick. We're going to have to see where he comes from out of this one. He got the W, wasn't the best fight. I've also heard other people like Jerry Cooney and, the guys that at the fights talk about that they thought that his opponent, wasn't being the most forthcoming either. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I've been a fan of Toefimo for a while, but I mean, at the end of the day, having your father in your corner can be a very good thing, but it also, in this case, maybe it could be a bad thing with, it being him being in his corner so long and being at the top of the game and, maybe people letting things slide that wouldn't have been let slide, maybe earlier in the career. I mean, only time's going to tell to see how Teofimo reacts from this loss, and we'll see what happens. And, speaking about reacting to things and all that good stuff, you'll be reacting if you use that code KO3MF, but that's a story for another time. But with that being said, this Tuesday, Jimmy Flick is going to be talking about his reaction to returning to the octagon off of his return and unretirement here. So there's going to be plenty to talk about before he steps in and his new opponent, Charles Energy Johnson. We have a lot to talk about there. Chris, as always, my dude, you always are coming in hot with the takes and, coming in with the knowledge and pointing out things that other people might have missed. So before we let you get out of here, let everybody know what it is that you've got coming from the last call and, where they can find you at and all that good stuff.
Like, check me out this week. It's going to be on lastcallpodcast.com. And we're a little bit blessed this week. It's going to be later on, but we have Juan Archuleta. He'll be joining the show as he's getting ready for his big fight on the New Year's Eve mega card with Ryzen. Always talking with him because he really brings heat. And then we got a UFC guy. So we have a fight from a 313's happy. That's right, the Leech, Damon Jackson. A heartfelt interview is going to talk about his fight, his last win, and having to fight, with the passing of his brother literally 2 weeks before the fight, and how he got through it, and just the reason why he did it. You got to check it out. But guys, always love being on Knockouts in 3 Counts. Now I want to know what you guys have planned for this Thursday's show.
So this Thursday is still kind of up in the air. We're trying to figure that out, but we do have some things on the docket. Like I said, Jimmy Flick will be coming this Tuesday. Thursday is still kind of up in the air, but coming soon, we will be joined by our buddy Whip, who will be with us to help us pick male and female wrestler of the year. Chris, maybe I'll have to get your picks and drop those in there as well. We're going to be talking male and female wrestler of the year, match of the year, all those kind of good things. And then obviously, talking about that on the fight end of the things, fight of the year, female fight of the year, all those kind of things. We got our year-end awards. So you got your year-end awards, you got Jimmy Flick, and, we're supposed to have the debut of a guy who originally we talked to when we were doing the stuff with EC3 for Control Your Narrative, Bulletproof Troop. I know he's going to be rolling this weekend in High Rollers. He's also going to be making his debut on NWA Power and going to be in the main event over there. So we've got that coming. You never know who's going to be in the other side of that box. So like Chris said, all the more reason why you got to hit that subscribe button so that you never know who it is you'll see on a Tuesday or a Thursday. And if you're new here, make sure you check us out on all the podcast platforms. Make sure you're checking us out on TikTok. Yeah, that's right. We're on TikTok and this motherfucker. Daniel Cormier saw the clip with Vinny Massaro talking about the DC driver. So, if you're new here, make sure you hit those subscribe button, check out the sponsors, and, make sure you check out Last Call, dude. So we're keeping it hot in this bitch. Until next time and in the in-between time, I appreciate y'all. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like button, comment button, tell a friend, and shout out to our sponsors, Michigan Finest, G3 Payroll. Get your money right. You'll be looking like the $1 Million Man. Peace.